process and honestly just answer as many questions as we can. So as always, if you can just drop your questions as they come up into the chat, we are going to do our best to get to as many questions as we can. If we miss a question, or if it's troubleshooting related, we just asked that you send those over to our team, our CS team at help@practicebetter.io, or even once Brittany shares her screen, we can show you there's a report and issue button right at the bottom of all of your Practice Better screens, where it'll take you to where you can submit your tickets and your questions to our CS team directly. So that's a bit of the housekeeping stuff. As always, the replay is going to go out tomorrow. So everyone who's here, anyone who's registered, you'll get the replay tomorrow. Anything we're talking about that has help articles or tutorial videos available, those will also go out tomorrow with the replay. So, we've got you covered there.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Britt, you want to share your screen?
Yeah, let's turn off our videos and we'll get our screen share so people can get a look at the platform here. Let me just get all set up. Maybe you can let me know if you can see that.
I can see it.
Perfect.
Can everyone else see it? Yes.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right. Awesome. All right. And as always, we're all working from home, so there might be some interruptions, I guess, as you all understand. So, as I mentioned, we're here today talking about availability and calendar optimization. So a really good place to start before Brittany gets to demoing different areas of the availability and calendar setup is just distinguishing these two sections. So if you think of my availability is really where you're going to go into set up where your clients can request, or when your clients can request sessions, where you're available, as well as when, right? And unless your availability is changing, you're really not going to be spending a whole lot of time in your availability section of Practice Better. So if you have, regular hours and basically, that doesn't change very frequently, your availability area is only where you're going to go if there's something that changes. You're going on holiday, you want to change your offerings, you want to change when they're available, that sort of thing. Once your availability is set up, my calendar is where you're going to be working from more frequently. So that gives you an idea of what's going on, a nice overview of your day, your week, your month. If you're part of a practice that has multiple practitioners, you can get an idea of everyone's calendar that you have access to as well. You can do your scheduling there, book some time off, and we'll show you exactly what we mean by everything I've just kind of introduced, but just to make those two sections really clearly distinct. One, availability is where you're setting up when you're going to work with clients, and my calendar is where you're going to work and you're going to be in there more on a daily frequency.
All right, let's get into more of the demo side of things. So before we get into tackling your availability, we strongly recommend setting up locations for your in-person sessions. So you can set up multiple locations if you don't only work from one physical location, and that will allow you to automatically provide clients with the location-specific information they need to do an all-in-one kind of all-in-person session with you. Stumbling over my words already. All right, so here on my locations, you can see that I've got already one set up here. So I've got my integrative health office here, and I can see the address and everything. You can choose to edit or delete it. I'm going to walk us through what it looks like to add another location. So again, we recommend doing this upfront before you're setting your availability. Someone's saying that they're not seeing this full screen. Natalie, are you seeing this full screen? The screen share? Okay, you guys can see it full screen. All right, I'm going to keep going here. So let's set up a second location here. So I'm actually going to name this one the Englewood Community Kitchen. So this is a location that I'm going to be running some group sessions out of, and I want this to be in the system so that when I set up that availability, people know where they need to go. So I'm not going to make this my default location because this is more for kind of one-off group sessions. Allow my clients to book in. Yes, I want this. Make this location flexible. I'm not going to check this one. This one would be an applicable kind of checkbox for, say, if you're doing something like a grocery store tour or something along those lines where maybe you needed different addresses along the ways. All right, so for the mailing address, let's just put in here a fake address for the sake of the example. I'm in Calgary, so we're going to use that. All right. Okay, so then we have the contact information for the location. So again, if you're working out of a different office, whether it's a communal space or maybe you're working out of an integrated clinic, something of that nature, if you want to provide the details for that location and how a client could get in touch with him if they needed to, you know, ask a question about parking or directions on how to get there, anything of that sort, you could include that information here. A further bit down, insurance billing. So if you are someone who offers super bills, you could include information here so that the code will automatically pull when you're generating that. And then any additional information. So again, if there's maybe a certain door people need to access, maybe you want to give them information about the parking, further information about directions, anything of that nature can go in this additional information section, and you can just provide that and they'll see that when they book the session with you. Okay, so I'm going to save this and it'll bring us back to my location page. And from here, this is where we can now save and preview. So this will take us to the practitioner's profile. And now you can see that my locations are listed and you've actually got it right pulling from Google Maps. So if a client is booking in and they're trying to understand where exactly you're located, they can click this, it will bring them onto Google and they'll be able to see the location specifically and even get directions from there.
Yeah, and just to add to what Brittany's saying, this information is also going to be available in their reminder emails or confirmation emails. So once they go and request a session with you, or even if you did the booking yourself, and this again is just for physical locations, we'll talk about phone options or video options as well once we set up availability. But for your physical locations, this stuff will be also included in, by default, in any reminder emails.
Yeah, so I see a question here asking what you set up for online only. This isn't for online. This would be for if you're offering in-person sessions. So if you're only working online, kind of skip this. You don't need to enter in these locations. All right, so once your locations are set up, that will allow you to get more specific about what services are available at each location and at what times. So when you're building your availability, you'll be able to put in where you're available when. And let's go over to setting up your availability now.
Yeah, so Brittany's going to walk us through setting up two types of availability. So we're going to first start with one-on-one availability. This is available on all of your plans, from the Sprout plan all the way up to the team plan. After we'll talk about more of group sessions if you're on the Pro plan and up. They're set up in the same place, but just a little bit different. The really great thing, and this is really why we wanted to do a deep dive on availability and calendar management, is because you can get very granular here. I mean, there are a lot of, we're going to first start with what do we want to offer, but then after this, we'll even get into, you know, how do we want to manage those offerings? How do we want those to show up? What are the restrictions around booking a specific type of service? So there's a lot of stuff that really is going to help you optimize how you want to work, streamline your ability to work with clients and at your ideal schedule. And like we said, really streamline and improve the experience of a client who's booking in with you, because if we give them all the information that they need up front, like the information about the locations, if they're working with you in a physical setting, if all the information about a video session or a phone session, like if we can give them all that information up front, so they're not having to then go to your website and look, is there parking here? Or how am I going to know where to go? Or how am I going to know how to log into a video call? All this stuff. It's a much better experience for especially a new client.
Yeah, so let's walk through this page to give you an idea of everything that you have available on your My Availability page. So I'm just going to kind of walk us through everything so you know exactly what you're looking at. So up at the top left here, we have a monthly kind of overview here. And what you're seeing with the shaded dates here, those are the dates that you've actually set availability for. So you can see how that kind of corresponds that my Wednesday is open and my weekends as well. And we're going to actually build that out together in a second here. You'll also see the time zone that your availability is being set in. So that's important if you are working virtually. You know, you might have clients that are in different time zones, but this is what you're actually setting your availability in. And then you'll have a full list of your different availability slots. So the different times that you have set up for your services to be available. And from here, you can choose to edit them or even add another. And then up at the top here, so we have different views that you can actually view your availability in, whether it's day, week, this is kind of what you'll see by default, or month. And then you can navigate through, right? So if you're looking to go into the next week and see what you have set up, you can navigate through here. And then always click this little calendar button to bring you back to the week that you're currently in. And you'll see kind of when you're showing in your calendar here. So right now we're in April 25th to May 1st. Going over onto the right side here, this little eye icon is where you can test availability. And we'll be getting into that in a little bit here. And then you also have some quick access buttons. So your ability to hop over to your calendar. So like Nathalie was saying, availability and calendar, they're two separate pages in the portal. So that will bring you over there. And then where we just came from, where you can manage your locations, you have a quick access button to go there. And then if we choose the more options button, you can hop over to out of office notification or your booking and cancellation. All right, so you have a couple of different ways when you're looking to actually set up your availability. You can use the red fast action button down here in the bottom right, and that will allow you to select what you'd like to set up. Or you can actually just click and drag. So I'm going to now build out Wednesday with you to kind of walk you through what that process looks like. So let's click and drag here. I'm going to go from 9 to 12 o'clock. I'm going to select one-on-one services to start here. And then it's going to bring up this box here. So again, you've got your time zone. So I'm setting up my availability in Eastern time. My start time, you can make sure that what you clicked and dragged is correct here and modify it if you need to. You've got the date of when this will begin to be available, and then you can choose how often you'd like it to recur. So for me, I want this to take place every Wednesday. So it's going to happen weekly, every week on Wednesdays. And for that morning time slot, this is actually when I want to offer my free discovery calls. So, you know, I want to keep them pretty limited throughout my work week. I'm going to choose for them to just be that Wednesday morning. Once you select the service, you'll actually be also able to offer or select what service method you want to offer. So for these ones, I'm going to remove the in-person and just keep this to by phone or online video chat. Since these are a shorter appointment of 15 minutes, no sense in someone kind of coming down to the office. And then I will save that. Okay, so now that time slot is in my calendar, and that will be there for every Wednesday going forward. For the rest of my day here, I'm going to fill in the rest of that time slot from 12 to 5 with more one-on-one services here. I'll just confirm that this is correct. Set this to recur weekly. And I'm going to choose all my other services here. So I'm opening up the rest of my day to all the other services that I offer. And I'm going to allow kind of all the different ways that people can work with me. You can also set your location. So I'm not going to be meeting clients for a follow-up session at the community kitchen. I'm going to actually take that off. And then I'll do the same for the rest here. So I'm going to leave all those options, but I'm going to make sure that I remove the community kitchen. Again, that's not where I'm meeting people for consultations.
Just while Brittany's editing her locations, there were just a couple questions that came through. So one was asking about, there was a question about being on the free plan and the icons looking different. Your icon should look the same because the availability is like this across the board for all plans. So it should look similar to this. If it's not, just make sure you've gone to my practice and my availability, that's where you're at. If it's still not, then maybe check with our CS team, but that should be what you're seeing. There was a question about how many services we set up on the Sprout plan. You can set up as many services as you want. So you can see what Brittany has here. She's got, a handful of services. Even if you're on the Sprout plan, just getting started or just getting familiar with Practice Better, you can set up as many services or packages, even from the free Sprout plan.
Yeah, perfect.
And then there was a question about vacation days, and we'll get back to that when we get to calendar. But there are a few different ways that we can set ourselves as unavailable if you're going to be away for a day or for a week, and we will get into the different ways to do that shortly.
All right, so we've got everything kind of set up here with the correct location. So I'm going to save that. And now I've got that added for every Wednesday. I've filled out the rest of my day there. So that is how you can kind of set up those one-on-one sessions here. Now let's also look at group sessions. So again, I'm going to use that red fast action button down in the bottom right and select group, class, and service here. So I actually want to set up something for the Saturday here, and I'm going to choose my group program check-in. So the one thing that really differs when you're setting up your one-on-one availability as compared to your group is that you're setting up kind of per session. So it's not like you're opening up an availability window where people can choose when they're booking in. This is really for the session. So you can see here that when I set up the service, I made it for 1 hour. And automatically here with the start time, you can see that the start time and the end time will correspond depending on the duration of that service. So that's really one of the biggest differences when you're setting up group sessions as compared to the one-on-one. All right, so I'm going to choose for that to be the online video chat. You can see that I don't have any other options here, and that's because of how I've set up that service. And then I actually do want this to recur. So with this being my group program, let's say that my group program is throughout the entire month of May. There's actually 5 Saturdays in May, so I'm going to select the 29th. And this is going to recur again weekly, every week on Saturdays. So now when I save this, I will have that group program check-in added to my calendar for the month of May for that group program check-in. And let's add one more just to show you kind of one other option here, give you guys some ideas. So I'm going to select here from 6:30 to 8, this group class, and this one is going to be my live cooking demo. This one is going to be in person. So this is where people are coming to cook in the kitchen with me. So as maybe you guessed, we're going to select the Inglewood Community Kitchen for the location here. Again, we've got that start time and an automatic end time based on the duration of the service. And this one I'm going to set to recur on a monthly basis. So this is going to be a series that I'm running over this course of the summer, once a month on the 3rd Thursday of the month. That's a bit of a tongue twister. People will be able to come in and get a live cooking demo with me. Okay. So there we go. That's now in my calendar here with this group session.
And just as a reminder, if this is the idea here is that clients will be able to book these themselves. So Brittany's gone ahead and opened up this availability. Of course, when we get to the calendar section, and if you were booking the appointments yourself, you could book at any time, whether it's within your availability or not. But this gives you the control to decide when a client can book. You've said, I am available during this time. You've created the parameters around how you want that session to be available, when you want it to be available, and you basically let them go into, let's say if you're putting your services on your website or they're logging into their Practice Better portal to schedule an appointment with you. How many, I just want to check with everyone who's joining us live, how many of you feel like you have your availability set up to really optimize your time? Let's see. Not yet. I've been doing it all wrong. Oh no, we're going to change that for you. That's okay. I think so. Still struggling. Not yet. I wish. So this is definitely something that you want to spend. I think once you have your services established and you know what you want to offer, it's not going to take you very much time to actually set up your availability once you've decided on when you want to be available, right? And the great thing about this is they're very easy to change, right? So if you wanted to start, you're just starting your practice, maybe we're all working under different circumstances now with COVID, right? You could do a part-time schedule where maybe you're working Monday, Wednesday, Thursdays, or maybe you're working Tuesday and Wednesday or whatever. Maybe you're making yourself available in the evening, right? You can really decide how you want your calendar to look. And then as your capacity changes, you can go and update those and now say, all right, well, now I've got more clients that I'm ready to work with, or more time, or whatever the case might be, and adjust. Now add an extra day, or extend your hours by an hour or two. So those things are really easy to do. Britt, if you want to can we just take a look at like how to quickly edit, let's say our Tuesday availability, if we wanted to change this from 9 to 5 to 10 to 6 or something.
Yeah, definitely. So it's really simple. You just can double click that time slot that you have set up on your Tuesday calendar. That will bring up the window that you saw when you were first setting it up, and super easy to just select a new time. So all I'm going to do is alter that from 10 a.m. to 6, save, and of course you can make any other necessary changes. And once I save that, you'll see that now my times on Tuesday have shifted down.
There's a question here about how do I make it so I'm not available so for example, I guess if, let's say you're available or you're not available every second Monday, for example. So when you're setting up your recurrence, you would go in and instead of saying make myself available every week, you could say make myself available every 2 weeks.
Yep.
Right? So you can work like that to make sure that there's a gap maybe every 2 weeks if every 2 weeks you're not available. The other option you could also do, if let's say it was every month, like there was a one day every month where you had limited availability, you could set up a limited availability for, let's say a Saturday I'm available from, I don't know, 3 to 6, right? And just make it once a month, like this recurs monthly. So you can play around with how frequently you want that time slot to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
To give you more flexibility.
Yeah. And I saw kind of what if you don't really have a pattern to your calendar. So, I mean, we'll get into a little bit more of those one-off sessions and how you can open up bookings to those in a little bit. But you do have the ability to open up bookings outside of what you're setting for your kind of predetermined work hours. So we'll show you that in a little bit.
And I guess just while you're on the screen, Britt, you also have this option to delete.
Yes.
So if we click on delete, we have two options here. So you can either delete the whole series. So delete all of your availabilities for Tuesday from now until eternity, or you can just delete this one specific day. So if she deletes this instance only, we're going to see that, okay, that Monday, sorry, I thought we were working with Tuesday. Monday is not available, but if we click to next week,
we'll go over to next week. There's
that Monday is there, right? So you always have that availability or the option, to either edit the whole series or just delete or edit, just delete that one instance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, let me just see. Let's take a look, see if we've got any other questions. I know there were a bunch of questions that came up earlier.
We have one question here about modifying an instance. So if you wanted to change just one particular day, what I would do is set up, for the service, and then you're not going to set it to recur. So just take that recurrence out for that particular one.
So what you do here is you would delete the instance for that one day, right? On the Tuesday, you would say, I'm deleting this instance for today. And then you set up availability that's only that day.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect. Can you click and drag time slots? Yes. So you can highlight all of them like that.
Okay. So let's talk maybe about testing services out, or your availability out. So I mentioned here this eye icon up at the top here, and this allows you to essentially see what your client would be seeing when they would be going to book. So once you have everything set up, it's a good idea to go in to make sure that everything is appearing as you intended. So let's kind of take a look, and I'll choose here for the sake of this example, my initial consultation. Can you guys still see now that I'm on a different tab here? You guys still see? Okay, great. So they can then select how they'd like to book. And again, you're kind of going through the motions as if you're a client here, right? So when I click on that, I'm going to actually scroll over to May so we can see a full month. Now, I just took out the Monday. So, for the sake of this example, let's say that I intended to have the Monday and I can see that it's missing. So now I can go back to my availability and take a closer look as to why that's not popping up. I also see here that I've got the 28th showing as not available. So perhaps that's because I have a personal event in my calendar that's blocking off that time. So I can go over to see if there's something in my personal calendar that's perhaps doing that. So this gives me a good idea as to kind of what my client is seeing, and it's that reassurance that what you're actually setting up in the availability is actually translating to the proper time slots that you intended. Okay, so let's actually go back and we'll look here. We'll just quickly set up this Monday here, and we'll put in all of our different services and save that. And now if I go and I test my availability again for that initial consultation, hopefully now I'm going to see that on the Monday. Oh, I didn't press save, did I? Or what do we got here? Maybe I chose the wrong ones. What do we think? What's going on here? Let's refresh that. Huh. Natalie, do you know why that would maybe not be showing up? What the common reasons are? Oh, I didn't press recurrence. You're right. I was in a rush. Yeah. So again, it's a really good idea here. So let's make sure this is actually set up with the reoccurrence. This is why exactly we test our availability. And now when I refresh this here, we should see that pop up. Okay, there we go. Thank goodness for you guys in the chat who caught that little error on my behalf. But again, good reminder for me to go and double check here. So now that all that availability is showing up on the Monday. But when we're thinking about our availability, we know that sometimes things don't translate over as well as we think they should. So a couple of common reasons, again, that I want to point out when we're talking about testing availability is to keep in mind the buffer times. Sometimes those can interfere with how your available time slots show up. So a good reminder that you can go through the individual services that you're setting up to see what buffer times you've included. So for anyone who's not familiar with what a buffer time is, it's essentially time before and after the actual session that allows you to know, get prepared for your next meeting, use the bathroom quickly, grab a bite to eat so that you're not kind of going from one meeting into the next without any kind of time break in between. So make sure that you're checking those buffer times. And then the other thing that can commonly interfere with your availability would be a personal event in your calendar. So if you have your Google Calendar integrated with Practice Better, keep that in mind. So full day events can sometimes show up in your availability and block it off. For example, on the 28th of May here, Google Calendar events can actually be set to available or busy in Google. So keep that in mind that if it's set as to put your status as busy in Google, it will pull over and block your availability in Practice Better.
Yeah, and like Brittany said, just to echo, her points, this is such an important piece. not just to make sure you've got it right, because obviously that's the primary thing. We want to make sure that your availability is showing up exactly as you intend it to, but also too, so you have the confidence to, to understand exactly what your clients are going to see, to feel confident that they're going to see what you want them to see, right? So that's a really important piece. So thinking, keeping in mind, and we'll share in the replay email tomorrow, one of our help articles that helps you troubleshoot availability. It gives you a list of things that might be affecting why your availability may not be showing up the way you expected it to. Buffer times being one, personal events as well, as Brittany mentioned. I wanted to, if it's okay with you, Britt, just take a couple of questions that came in. There are questions about, can we change the time for each session? Like, so a 30-minute session, a 15-minute session. So just keep in mind here in availability, we're just deciding when we want to be available. The duration for every service type is going to be set up when you set up your services under My Practice. So when you go to My Practice, My Services, that's when you're going to decide how long a specific session type should last. So if you're an acupuncture, if it's an acupuncture appointment and you want that to be a 15-minute time slot, that's when you're going to do it there. If you want discovery calls to be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever the duration is, you'll set it up in your service. Under availability, you're just saying, allow my clients to book, these service types within this time frame. And so we'll automatically calculate, is there enough time in your availability slot to make you available to do a discovery call, initial consultation, acupuncture session, that sort of stuff. There was another question about group programming. So if you're doing group programming, let's say a fixed date program, and I don't want to jump into fixed date programs, we'll talk about that next month. But if you're scheduling sessions as part of a fixed date program, you can just build them right into that fixed date program. So you don't need to go in and set up availability for those. You can just set them up right from your fixed date program. For those of you working in teams, what will determine what you can see in terms of availability or calendars for other practitioners will really be based on your permissions. So if you're not seeing someone's calendar or availability, it's likely going to be a permission setting. So you can just check with our CS team and they can help you figure out exactly what permission should be adjusted.
Yeah, I did see one other question about whether if you put it in your Google Calendar as a free, the status is free, will it also block on Practice Better's calendar? No, so it won't block your availability if you mark your Google Calendar event as free. So that was a question from one of our viewers here. All right, so we can quickly chat about what you're going to see as far as if you are a client, what you're seeing on their end. So the time zone is one that we often want to talk about because working in a virtual world, like I talked about a little bit earlier, it's a good chance that you'll have clients who are in different time zones. So what are clients going to see when they book? They are going to see their own time zone when booking, whatever kind of their browser is showing or their phone is showing. So I just want to quickly hop back over here and show you that when I'm looking at my availability, and I'll just select a random day here, my time here is showing as Mountain Time. And that's actually because that's the time zone that I'm in. So even though I was setting up my availability in Eastern as the practitioner, when I'm testing this out as if I'm the client, this is pulling my time zone where I currently am. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that the availability that you set up is going to show in the time zone that the client is in when they go to book. As far as the confirmation and reminder notifications that clients get surrounding their sessions, they'll also get it based on whatever time zone they requested the session in. So clients can actually select a time zone in their profile. That will mean that the client has created an account and logged in. But as the practitioner, if you've added them, So if you've created a profile for them and manually booked them for an appointment without specifying, which time zone they're in specifically, it will default to your time zone as the practitioner. So again, if you manually book them in and you're kind of creating their profile, but you're not saying specifically what time zone they're in, it will just default to whatever you're in. So keep that in mind. Okay. When is an appointment or session confirmed? So when a practitioner confirms it, so whether you have that manually set up or you're doing it automatically, because you can set up an automation for this, clients will go and they'll see, the time, and they'll also be given an option to confirm the session. So that doesn't need to be clicked. Truth be told, like they're not needing to do that to be accepted. However, it's just nice to have, and it will show their acknowledgement and engagement.
Yeah, exactly. So when clients go in and book a session, it's actually a request. So you need to, you will either like Britt said, you will need to either manually or automatically confirm those sessions. So if you want to, maybe for whatever reason, maybe you want to, I was going to say, well, I guess anyways, sorry. Yeah, you can do it manually for whatever reason. If you need a little bit more control over your schedule, you're not always available even though, you're set to available, maybe things come up, or maybe, you want to. Another reason it might be like, you might be wanting to only work with a specific type of client. That's another reason to maybe manually approve someone. Maybe you're asking them kind of qualifying questions now I'm getting into I'm opening a can of worms, but you could ask them kind of pre-qualifying questions using a booking form that asks them maybe, what their main concerns are. And for example, if you only work with clients with diabetes and this client is coming to you for, prenatal care, you might say, oh, sorry, this is not my specialty, or whatever the case, and choose to not accept that booking. But we also have these automations under My Practice that will allow you to set up automations if your calendar is pretty well established, your schedule is pretty well established, and you say, all right, so long as someone's booking within the parameters I've set, we're good to approve those. So as Brittany said, it's confirmed once you say it's confirmed, either manually or automatically. Just before we leave this page, Britt, there is a question about just blocking time off in a calendar. So Brittany made these time blocks are pretty just across the day. But if you wanted to set up, that you're available in the morning from 9 to 12, you could just create a time block that's 9 to 12. And maybe the next time block that you're available starts at 1 or it starts at 3. Right? So you could create 2 time blocks like she did for Wednesday. And it would just simply mean creating 2 time blocks for a specific day. So for example, if you want to go to, there we go. So Wednesday, the 28th, we can see that there's a gap in her availability. So if you want to have, you can do it either by creating 2 separate time blocks, like I mentioned, or availability blocks. The other way you can do it is if you take lunch every day from, 11 to 12, for example, is you could even set that up under as a personal event in your calendar, which we'll talk about quite soon, where you could just say like lunch, and now you're not going to be available for that time. So it kind of overrides your availability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I see a lot of questions coming in about calendar integrations, and we do touch on that towards the very end of our deep dive here. And for anyone that did join a little bit later to the session here, there is a replay that's going out on YouTube. So you'll be able to catch the full thing and kind of see all the different things that we spoke about today. All right, we can maybe start chatting about booking and cancellation settings. Nathalie, if you want to share with us a little bit about that.
Yes. I love bookings and cancellations settings because, again, it's all about creating the schedule you want, right? And really showing up for your clients and showing them what you want them to see in a way that really represents how you want to work. So bookings and cancellation settings, And don't get overwhelmed. There's a lot of them here. We're going to walk you through them. There's these really nice little what's this kind of prompts that you can click on while you're navigating through your own settings that will kind of help you better understand what each setting means. But basically, this is going to allow you to control the flexibility and give you flexibility, in your scheduling. So you can build in default buffer times. Brittany was talking about buffer times earlier. So, being able to block off time before or after a session. You can also allow clients to book, let's say, for the next 60 days, or you can allow them to book from now until forever, right? So you can limit how far in advance they can book. You can even restrict, like if you don't want someone to book, let's say 2 hours before, the desired session time, you can put restrictions in place. So you can say, hey, I need at least an hour heads up. Or if you're like me, you might need a full day, right? You might not want to just be maybe out running errands because you didn't think you have a client at a specific time. And now all of a sudden, someone's expecting you to jump on telehealth shortly. So you can create parameters around the availability that you've already set up to just give you a better work-life balance. So Britt, let's jump into those.
Yeah, let's walk you guys through all the different sections here on the bookings and cancellations page. So we'll kind of just walk through everything here. So you've got your session reminders right at the very top. If this, doesn't work for you and how you run your practice, you can alter this to a different time period and the type of notification that goes out. So keep that in mind, that if you want it to go out earlier than this, or maybe a day later, that's flexible. You can change that according to your preferences, and you can also add additional notifications here. So for this one here, enable confirmation emails for uninvited clients. So typically, if a client isn't invited, this means you are manually booking them in. And generally speaking, you would have an idea of their availability. So, however, if you'd still like an email asking for them to confirm their scheduled session, again, it's that little button that they'll get in the email notification. You can click this box here. All right, so let's talk about this kind of group of 4 options here. So your availability options. These are really additional options that allow you to manage a bit more of when you want to be available to your clients who are requesting sessions on their own. So these 4 options may be less common, but they're definitely good to know about. Okay, so requesting sessions outside of regular availability for your one-on-ones. So essentially what this will be is clients who are, wanting to book in outside of your regular hours. So essentially you're opening up your entire kind of timeline, your week, whatever it may be, for clients to book in at one-off hours. So on days that you don't have any availability set, they can kind of choose whatever time they'd like. If it is a day that you already have kind of your working hours outlined, it will be within that kind of time period. Bear in mind that with requesting sessions outside of your regular availability, you can't actually select which days specifically you want to open this up to. It's opening up your full week. So keep in mind that if you're someone who likes to keep their weekends free and you're taking that off work, there's a good chance you might get a session request for a Saturday or a Sunday. With the sessions requested outside of your regular availability, you will need to manually confirm these appointments. So again, they're coming in as a request. Even if you have the automation set up to automatically confirm appointments, you will still need to manually say yes to anything coming outside of your regular availability. And then we have request sessions regardless of conflicting events in your external calendars. So if you're someone who has a Google Calendar integrated with Practice Better and you don't want whatever's coming in from your personal calendar to interfere with your availability, you can select this box here. And that will allow full kind of availability no matter what your personal calendar is showing. So if you're maybe a parent who's using their external calendar to keep kind of reminders of things for their kids, and that's not actually going to interfere with, say, your actual availability, maybe you want to check off that box there. So So that's an option for you. But just bear in mind, kind of like we talked about earlier, that with Google Calendar, you can mark an event as your status being free or busy. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about utilizing this option here. Okay, exclude external calendar all-day events. So we know that all-day events that are in your calendar can sometimes interfere with your availability. So, if that's a birthday or a holiday, something of that nature that's in your calendar. So you can exclude those from interfering with your availability. And lastly, here we have the buffer. So add buffer time to events in my external calendar. You'll have the ability to select this at a service level when you're setting up those services, the time that you want before and after a session. But buffer time is useful if you need to take into account that prep time and the travel time between sessions, personal appointments. So we'll just make sure that no sessions are requested during your buffer time in relation to the calendar.
Sorry, correction here.
Yeah.
This is for the external events. So if you have a dentist appointment in your Google Calendar, and you want to make sure, so if you have something scheduled in your Google Calendar that's blocking your availability and practice better, you can add buffer times on top of what's blocked from practice better. So let's just say you want to say, add an extra 30 minutes buffer on both ends of an external event, just to make sure I have time to get back to, let's say, where I'm going. Yeah, exactly. So you already get to set them up with your services, but now with this option, you can put it to whatever calendar whatever's in your personal calendar that you've integrated with Practice Better. All right. And sorry, I'm just gonna, I just wanted to add there was a few questions that came in. Sorry, Britt, to interrupt your flow.
That's okay.
So for Google Calendars, Brittany, we'll talk about what calendars integrate in a little bit. But if you are connecting multiple Google Calendars, because we are talking a lot about external events right now, if you are wanting to connect multiple Google Calendars to Practice Better, you're going to actually have to add your additional Google Calendars to your primary Google Calendar event, and then link the primary one to Practice Better. And that's going to be done in third-party integrations. And we'll send out the link with the replay on how to do that. But you'll first choose a primary Google Calendar that you want to use to link to Practice Better, and then link all additional calendars to that primary one in Google itself. And that's kind of also how you're merging other calendars as well. So you manage the merger of those calendars in Google, and then, sorry, I got a little one, and then link a primary Google calendar into Practice Better to be able to start using the features that Brittany was just talking about. We're going to talk about how to schedule patients in office very shortly. And also, okay, sorry, go ahead, Britt.
Yeah, no worries. All right, let's go into availability display. So the settings under availability display give you control on how you'd like your clients to see your availability. So you have availability increments. By default, you've got the 15 minutes, and this might be good if you've got a service that runs in that kind of time period, right? So 15 minutes, like a discovery call, but you've got all these different increments that you can set your calendar to. So anywhere from 5 minutes to the hour. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your display. And then you also have the option for rolling start time. So I'm actually going to click the what's this so you have a little bit of a visual here. But if you have a 30-minute service, you can see kind of how it will be displayed for clients that are looking to book in. Just keep in mind that with rolling start times, if a client requests a session in the middle of your availability slot, it might limit the number of bookings you can actually take on, if they're kind of popping in the middle there. So just keep that in mind with rolling start times. We also have a couple of newer settings for you guys. So limit gaps between bookings for one-on-one sessions. So essentially, if enabled, we'll recommend times adjacent to your existing booked sessions and session requests. So let's click this here. You've got two different sections. You've got the ability to recommend times adjacent to personal events. And then you've also got recommendations for times adjacent to external events. So again, talking about what Nathalie was speaking on, when you're integrating your calendars, we can kind of lump things together, or at least gently nudge a client towards booking closer to your other sessions rather than you having a big gap in your calendar. And then if you prefer to have a little bit of time in between your sessions, you can say kind of what you'd like to have here. So you can select that as well. All right, we also have the Make Me Look Busy, and this is a newer one, and we have recently changed this one a little bit. So if you would basically like to display your calendar to appear more full than it actually is, maybe you're just starting out and you don't want somebody to see you've got nobody else in your calendar, you can use the Make Me Look Busy. And you get to choose just how busy you'd like to appear based on percentage of your calendar. So anywhere from 10% to 90%. And then you can still choose for the minimum available slots to display. So maybe you still want a minimum of 3 to show if you're still using this option, because you don't want a client to get in there and then see that you have really nothing to book. The one thing that we've changed since we introduced this is now you get to evenly throughout the availability period show places to book. And then you can also select if you prefer the earlier times or later times. So you get to choose when your availability will show based on kind of making yourself look busier. All right. Do we have any questions that have popped up about that?
Yeah, lots of questions. Some of them about earlier things. While Brittany and I start digging through some of the questions in our chat and Q&A, let us know who knew about these newer features about putting or reducing the gaps between your bookings, as well as the Make Me Look Busy. Let us know who knew about these, who's learning about them for the first time today, and who's seeing opportunities where you can kind of tighten up how you're managing your availability here. Someone asks, okay, what's the first thing that needs to happen? So basically, do we first set up availability? Before you can set up availability, you need to actually create your services. So the services that you want to offer, decide, what they're going to be called, how long they're going to take, how they're going to be available. When you set up a service, you can decide if it's an in-person service, if it's an online service, it's a phone service. If it's online, you can decide if you're going to use Practice Better Telehealth, or if you're, connected your own Zoom account, you can choose Zoom. So that's where you're going to do first and foremost, and that's under My Practice. Once you've set up your services, then you can go set up your availability and really decide when you're going to open yourself up, not just, what's the service type, but when you want to open yourself up. So those are the first 2 steps there. Then next question, is there a special way to set up a free discovery call? So I had a client book this, and now she seems to be considered a client in Practice Better. So there, in order for you to accept or confirm a booking in Practice Better, you have to confirm that person as a client. It doesn't mean that they're going to work with you in the long term. It doesn't mean that you've decided that. It just means that you are accepting to create basically a profile for them in Practice Better so that you can potentially work with them. So before you actually confirm, or at the time that you confirm a new potential client, a service for that person in Practice Better, at that same time, you're going to be asked to basically add them to Practice Better. That's basically what it means. So it doesn't really have a bearing on will you work with them in the future, but they have to be in the system in order for you to conduct, a session or to send them reminders. And so basically we're just asking for your approval to add them to the system so they can get reminders, so they can, if you choose to give them access to Practice Better, you can. If you want to take notes on them, you've got a place to do that. And then if you decide not to work with them, and you decide not to keep their records or whatever you have to do and want to do, that's a bit of a separate conversation. If you're on a plan, one of the plans that actually has a client limit, if you've reached that client limit within your plan and someone requests a new potential client requests a session with you, we're still going to let them make that request. We'll just prompt you that you've got a prospective client and that you'll have to change your plan in order to confirm that appointment. So they won't ever see, there will not be any interruptions in their ability to book with you or at least request a session, but we will prompt you and let you know that you've reached your limit and that you'll need to change your plan. So you don't have to worry about that if you're on a plan that has a client limit.
All right, any other questions before we go on to booking restrictions?
Let me just see. Confusion about buffers before. My confusion is about buffers before and after sessions. I think it really depends on, when I was practicing, I used to put my buffers mostly on the tail end of my session. Personally, because I like to wrap up my notes after I saw a client, and I found that having that time built in there was helpful to me. I don't off the top of my head have a great example of a buffer that would be ahead of an appointment, unless it's just you want to make sure that you've got time scheduled to be able to maybe go in and take a look at what happened with your client last session ahead of the new session. So I guess actually that is a good example, but those are a couple of examples as to why you would want to use a buffer time either before or after a session, or you could choose to use them both, before and after. Can availability settings be done in Google Calendar? As Brittany said, you can have your availability in Google Calendar, which will affect your availability in Practice Better. I mean, I would manage Practice Better stuff in Practice Better. I mean, and only putting Google, like what really needs to kind of block your calendar in Practice Better. I would get, yeah, I would be concerned that if you're trying to manage your availability in Google, that there might be too much of an opportunity to miss something, maybe get double booked or something like that. All right, let's see. Brett, you've got a couple, do you have any other questions on that end?
No, there's a couple questions that people are having that we'll still get to in the demo here. So stay tuned, and you might find that your questions will be answered. So yeah, we've got a little bit more to work through here.
All right.
All right. Okay, so booking restrictions. Nathalie, do you want to chat us through that?
Yes, so booking restrictions. So this is kind of what we were talking about a little bit before, is do you need a set amount of time before a client can have a session with you, or do you want to limit how far into the future clients can book? So what we're going to do here is we're going to dive into this as a default. Okay, just keep in mind that you're going to be able to do this, really drill into this and customize this according to service type when you are managing your sessions or your services that you offer. So I could say here, listen, I need at least, I think the default here, not I think, but is less than 1 day. But if you want to go into your, let's say, initial consultation and say, I need them to book at least 4 days in advance, right? So you're going to be able to do that on a service level, service basis level, just because maybe it takes more time to prep for initial consultation than it does to prep for a discovery call. Maybe you need to make sure, if it's initial consultation, they need to have the time to fill out the forms that go along with that. So we're right now going to be setting up default settings, but then just keep in mind, you can customize those according to each service type on all plans, right from by going to my practice, my services.
Yeah, exactly. So like Nathalie was saying, if you're looking to avoid last minute bookings because you want time to properly prepare, make sure you're in the right place, you have all your ducks in a row, you get to select when you'd like to kind of start to block off your calendar to avoid those last minute bookings. So we have anywhere from less than 1 hour before all the way up to, basically a month and a half and beyond. You can customize it. So generally speaking, one day before, maybe 2 days, like Nathalie said, if you need a little bit more time to review some forms that you've received, make your notes so that you're prepared for, say, an initial consultation. You can select what makes sense for you, bearing in mind that, again, like Nathalie said, if there's a one-off service that requires more or less time for the restriction, you can go in and alter that at the service level. So let's leave that at the less than 1 day before. I want at least 1 day notice. Now, when it comes to allow clients to book, you have 2 options here. So anytime in the future. So this could be great if maybe you have a package where someone wants to book out all their sessions, or you have the ability to select a rolling date range. And this is where you'll choose how many days your clients can book out with you. So maybe that's a week. Maybe you want to put this at 30 days so that basically what you're trying to avoid here is maybe a no-show. So when clients are booking, they'll see your next month of availability. And that's usually good because people typically tend to know what the next month looks like as far as their commitments and what they'll need to be doing. If you leave this completely open-ended, essentially what you're doing is you're running the risk of somebody booking so far in advance that in between now and then something comes up and they forget or whatever happens, right? So this will help to kind of avoid those no-shows, but you can play around with this date depending on kind of what makes sense for you. And then they'll just see however many kind of days you've selected here on your availability and your calendar when they're booking. All right, let's talk about session limits. So session limits here, if you'd like to limit how many sessions can be booked per day, you can select what restriction you'd like to set. So, and you can also do this per service. So maybe, you're working more on the back end of your business because you are coming up with a new program and you're working hard and you have less time to actually meet with your clients. And maybe you want to say a maximum of 5 sessions per day, 3 sessions per day, so that you have that time to actually be working on the content and whatever. Maybe it's tax season and you need to take a week to really block out your calendar so that you can get all your things together. So whatever the reason is, you can choose how many sessions a day that you'd like to max out at. And you can also make this more granular at the service level here. So maybe you only want to have 3 discovery calls a day, whatever the example is. You'll then be able to go in and select the service that you want. So I'm tying this to my free discovery call. And then you can say that I only want 3 per day. So now, even if my day and my availability is quite open, I'm only taking 3 discovery calls a day because I want to be focusing on the other services and leaving time open for those that are actually going to be generating me income and bringing money into the business. So you can kind of cap those depending on how many you want to take on at any given day, week, or even month. All right.
Yeah, and as Britt said, you can keep adding as many of these limitations as you want. Again, keeping in mind, I think once you've kind of played around with your availability and then you can start saying, oh, wow, these initial consultations or whichever session, they're really heavy or they take a lot more time, or if you find that one is maybe more tiresome than others, that's a good time to be limiting how many of those you can do, or even limiting how many of them you can do in an hour, depending on how short those sessions are or how long the sessions are, and having that flexibility to do per hour, per day, per week, per month. So yeah, definitely, play around with them. There's a lot of custom options here for you to kind of customize what your day, week, month will look like with working with clients in Practice Better.
Yeah, definitely. So the next thing that we want to highlight here for you guys is your calendar options. So this is essentially how you're seeing as the practitioner and navigating through your calendar. So you can choose to hide personal event details from your team. So if you're working with team members and you don't want them to see what you're doing personally, you can check this box off and it'll just appear as busy. So they'll see that you're busy and that you've got that time blocked off, but they won't see the details as to what that is. And then anyone who has the ability to actually be booking in for you and creating sessions on your behalf, they'll still see details. So, if you're working with a virtual assistant or an admin person, they'll still be able to kind of go in and see what's what in your calendar. And then you've got a few other options here. So depending on how, as the practitioner, you want to see your calendar, how you'd actually like things to appear in your calendar. So whether you want it to read as, whatever the service is and then their name, you can play around with how you want that to appear. So you guys can go in and play around with those settings to make sure it works for you. All right, let's go into cancellation and out of office notifications. So with these ones here, of course, we always are trying to avoid people canceling last second. So you can choose to display your cancellation message. We do want to kind of maybe advise you guys to let people know your cancellation terms multiple times, right? So this should maybe be reinforced in initial paperwork that your client is filling out for you. You can even ask your clients to acknowledge this when they're booking via form or a waiver, so they're even signing it. You can also add in a reminder in your confirmation email. So maybe you have a 48-hour cancellation period or a 24-hour. We don't prevent people from canceling, but they will see the pop-up. So we're trying our best to prevent the no-shows, right? But we can't stop people from actually canceling. As the practitioner, you'll be notified if a client cancels. So you'll get an actual email and they'll be able to write in the reason as to why they canceled. And then you'll also be able to select whether you want an instant alert as well that pops up and lets you know that a client has canceled and the reason why. So keep that in mind, but you can add in your cancellation period here. So maybe again, that's 48 hours. And then say, your deposits will be lost if you cancel within that 48-hour period or something to that nature. So the client is reminded that you have those terms and conditions in place.
Exactly. And there were a couple of questions about out of office that came up while we were talking about availability. So how do I tell people that I'm going to be away? Do I adjust my availability for one specific day, or do I, put a personal event in place? There are a few options. So here we do have an out of office notification that we can enable. We can set up multiple out of office periods. So especially if you're going on holiday, right? You know that, hey, I'm going to be off the first week of July, whenever that is, right? You can go ahead and put it up here. It's going to prevent clients from booking during this time period for all service types. It's also going to show up as a banner in the client portal. So for those clients who have access to the client portal, they're going to see, that you're going to be away for this period of time. There are other ways that you can also give them a heads up, of course. So you can use something like, you can let them obviously know ahead of time if you're seeing them. We can also use something like a broadcast message if you're on our Plus Plan or up, or even if you're not on the Plus Plan up and you're using an email marketing system, it's a good idea to give people a heads up, like, hey, I'm going to be away for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Here's the link so you can book, before then, or whatever the case might be. So this will override any availability that you have set up in your availability as another way of not making you available during that time period. In addition, you can, like we talked about, you could delete the availability for those specific instances. And then you can reinforce that messaging by sending out an email or a broadcast message letting clients know that you're going to be away during a specific period, in addition to the banner that shows up at the top of their client portal.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see here that I've added in one for this weekend here with a message that I'm not available for bookings at that time, but you can continue to add them. So, if you've got your summer already planned out and the periods of time that you're going to be out of office or away and unavailable for bookings, you can kind of go in and add them so that you can kind of set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about last minute when we're all trying to scramble and tie up all the loose ends before we actually take a vacation. It's already in place for you. So as soon as you have it, you can kind of know that it will be in place for you. So that's how you set the out of office notification. All right.
So we're going to jump into my calendar. The my calendar section is not quite as long as the my availability, but still quite important. I know we're a little over time, so thank you guys all for sticking around. Just want to check before we move into my calendar. Are you guys feeling like you've got great, you know where you can go now to kind of optimize the availability that you've set up for yourselves and how you want your availability to be displayed? Do you feel like you know, at least, if nothing else, my schedule and bookings and cancellation settings, that should be now on everyone's radar. Go in, take your time and look at all the different settings available. And the other really huge takeaway is, after you've set up your availability and you've set up those the booking and cancellation settings, that you're testing out your availability. Okay, so I think those are the two huge takeaways, but don't underestimate the importance of really setting up your availability thoroughly, because it's really going to make things so much easier for you. We're going to talk about booking and just navigating the My Calendar page. And then we'll get to some of the calendar related questions. So we haven't forgotten you. We'll jump back to some of those shortly.
Yeah, so this looks by all appearances similar to the My Availability page when you first hear, but it is a little bit different in terms of functionality. You will see again this calendar up in the top left, and instead of the availability showing this time, this is the shaded dates are showing the days that you have bookings. So a little bit different there. So these are the dates that I have something already in my calendar. Okay, so I can actually kind of scroll to the next month. So we have a more full month, and you can see again, we've got the time zone and your display settings. So these are all the things that are going to pop up in your calendar, and you can choose what makes the most sense for you, but it's as simple as basically just clicking or unclicking a box here. And these things will pull over into the calendar and what you're seeing here. You've got your different views. So again, an agenda. So you'll see kind of it as a list form. You can get into the day. So you're seeing a day here with the bookings, the week, that's what we kind of started on, month, and then you can pull up simply just your bookings. So lots of different views for you to navigate through depending on what makes the most sense for you. And again, you can navigate through the different weeks and then pull yourself back to this date. You have the ability to refresh. You can print your calendar. So maybe if you're working in a clinic setting or with a team, that might be useful so that it can be posted. You can go through a quick access spot to manage your availability, and then back to that bookings and cancellation setting. So lots of different options right from the calendar page. But let's actually look at how you can add things to your calendar here. So you've got the red fast action button, and that's going to pull up kind of the main functionalities here. So from here, you can add a task reminder for yourself. You can add an event. So this would be a personal event, and this is another way that you can kind of time block your calendar. So blocking off with a personal event to limit your availability from a client standpoint. You can schedule in a group session or manually book in a client. So you've got all these different options here as far as what you can do from this kind of main page. All right. Do we have any questions about what people are seeing, Nathalie?
Sorry, had to unmute myself. So there are a couple of questions. There's one question that's come up a few times about if you've booked your clients yourself, and then how to book that, or sorry, how to link that back to a package. So if you've booked a client yourself, so in Practice Better, if you're going to My Calendar, and if they have a package set up, when you choose the client, you'll have the option to choose a package that already exists for them. If the session was booked outside of Practice Better, you can go in and retroactively put it into Practice Better. So you go into choose the date in the past, put the, schedule the appointment, and then link it to a package. So if we click on a day, like let's say Monday, we could choose a client. If they had a package, that would have been an option first. Mm-hmm. This person doesn't have a package. So now we're just seeing the list of sessions that you have to choose from. But you would be able to go in, choose the time that you saw them, schedule it, and then link that session to a package. And you'll just see this notification at the top, just reminding you that this session was in the past. We know that. So we'll just click done, but you'd be able to link that to a package to make sure that the package count is correct.
One question here about why you would add personal events to your calendar. Wouldn't you use your personal calendar for that? It's nice if you have the ability to integrate them, because if you have, say, an appointment where you're not going to be available to see clients, Practice Better will block that off so that you don't double book yourself, essentially. So you can see here that I've added a couple of personal, let's actually go over to even the next week here. You can see that during my workday, I've got a meeting with my accountant. So I'm not going to be able to see a client during that 3 to 3:30 time slot. So by linking my personal calendar, now this will not be available for a client to book in with me.
Yeah. And then also, if you're using Google Calendar, for example, that personal event will already block things off in Practice Better. And also just keep in mind that no one sees your calendar, right? Only you. And if you have team members or an admin who have access to see your calendar, but clients cannot see what's going on in your calendar. They just see where you have openings in availability. There was a question earlier about, can clients book from the website, or do they have to be on Practice Better? So all of your sessions, like services, packages, programs, those things can all be linked to your website. We're going to add the links for that into the replay that goes out tomorrow. But you'll be able to add those links, or even embed a widget onto your website or wherever it is you want to place them. And clients don't actually need to be logged into Practice Better to book. So they could be a net new client. They can be, a client that's already been working with you. They don't need to be in Practice Better to book. If they are a client, an existing client, and they have something like a package that they've purchased, we definitely recommend that they go into Practice Better to book, because then they can book from the package that they've already purchased and that's been assigned to them.
Yeah,
Those are some good questions.
Yeah, I'm seeing one question about how to start the week on Monday. So if you consider Monday to be the start of your week, you can just actually navigate back over to calendar options, and that will allow you to select what day of the week you consider to be the start. So again, you can move Sunday to the end of the week and start it on the Monday.
Yep. The replays for these are going to be available. They're going to be on our YouTube page. So once you're done rewatching this one to make sure you've got your everything set up the way you want it to be, you can check out the other deep dives that you may have missed. They're all on our YouTube page.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to highlight on the calendar page today?
Let's see. Honestly, I think calendar is pretty straightforward. I think just keeping in mind that this is where you go, this is where you're going to do more work, where you can, like we said, you can go in and schedule, you can go in and reschedule. So if you wanted to adjust an appointment time, you can even add a note, either a note to yourself, or again, if you're working with an admin or other team members, you can add a note to the bookings, like client's going to bring insurance card or something like that. If you want to click on, if you want to just click on one of the appointments. So we can add a little note at the bottom, and that's an internal note. So clients are not going to see that, but it's going to be available to anyone else who might be looking at your calendar, or even yourself, as a good little reminder ahead of going into the next year session. Someone says, so I'm a little bit behind in some of these comments. Apologies. You guys are doing amazing. We are live. We get that question a lot, but we are absolutely live. We absolutely love all of your comments and questions. Someone's saying, I love this make me look busy feature. Someone's saying, wow, Nathalie, it's really grown since the beginning. Yes, lots of really cool changes over the last couple of years. Also, lots of really cool changes that keep coming. So, when we ask you to, if you've got feedback and we weren't able to get to it today, or even questions, CS team at help@practicebetter.io are always there, and they honestly, they love being able to help you get your feedback. So don't be shy. It gets back to us. We absolutely love what you have to tell us. Brittany's just clicked on report an issue, and the feedback button will do the same at the bottom of your screen, where you can connect with CS here as well.
Yeah, so this will allow you to report from any page that you're on.
Someone's asking, make me look busy. What does it look like from the client's view? When you're testing out your availability, you can take a look at that, but basically it's going to depend on what percentage of time you want to remove from your availability and how many what the minimum slots are going to be. So it's going to look a little bit different, but basically it's just going to eliminate whatever percentage of time slots you've indicated that you'd like to remove.
Yeah, someone's asking where you go to actually integrate your calendar, which is kind of a nice segue for us. So the gear icon up at the top here, you'll see a little section for third-party integration. So essentially, when you click this, there will be a place for you to link your Google Calendar account. When you click it, it will prompt you to log into your Google account. You'll go through a couple of just permissions, and then it will be linked. So again, Nathalie was mentioning that if you have multiple Google Calendars that you're utilizing, you'll have to kind of link them all to the main one. And then you have the option of putting in that one main Google Calendar into our integration here.
Yeah. And just a reminder, again, there were questions about other calendars that link to Practice Better. So the other calendars that could link to Practice Better would be through the Google integration. So for example, if you had like iCal, which is a very popular one, I think Office 365, if you had those sorts of calendars, you could link them. If you can link them to Google, you can integrate them into Practice Better. That being said, I would highly recommend using Google directly, because Practice Better and Google sync in real time, whereas Google's sync with some of the other calendars is not always in real time, which could create a conflict in your calendar. So for example, I don't know exactly the amount of time it is, but for iCal, and the sync between iCal and Google is not immediate. So if you have an hour delay in that syncing, you could get double booked. So if you're looking at using an external calendar, I highly recommend using Google, just the native integration there, because it's going to be the most reliable. Practice Better, booking Practice Better also show up in my Google Calendar? That's up to you. So when you link your Google Calendar, you have the option to send information back to Google and how you want that to be presented. So depending on what sort of practitioner you are or coach, and what your, how much information you can or want to send back to Google, that's up to you, but that will be in your Google integration settings under third-party integrations.
All right.
Let's see.
Somebody asked about frequently asked questions. We have our whole help center here. So I just want to highlight that quickly, because there are so many articles on here that really walk you through pretty much anything in the platform. So if you have questions about integration, if you have questions about testing your availability, you can always just put in a few keywords into the Help Center search bar here, and it will bring up a range of different articles that could potentially help answer your question. So just wanted to highlight that there. And we have lots of resources on YouTube and elsewhere for where you can go to learn more.
Yes. All right. So, pardon me.
I was going to say, we can maybe turn our cameras back on and say hello again.
Yes, let's do that. I can't turn mine back on.
Thank you for hosting it. Let me just do this here. All right, there you go. You should be able to put your video on.
All right. There's a question about, so confirmation button in the confirmation email, is it an overkill? So that is you can auto confirm appointments for your clients. So that means they wouldn't have the option to confirm that they're attending. It's just a nice, like, basically them giving you a heads up, like, yeah, I remember, I'll be there. That's the whole point of the clients confirming their appointments. But you can choose to auto confirm them. So if you're confirming an appointment manually, you'll have this option to mark the session confirmed on behalf of the client. And if you're setting it up as an automation to automatically confirm appointments, you'll have that same option there. So if you don't want your clients to kind of just, yeah, I remember, I'll be there, you can go ahead and auto confirm those, and it won't show up on their side. Is it possible to set up recurring booking for a client? We're working on it. We're working on it. We've got a lot of questions and a lot of requests for that. So we are definitely working on it. It'll happen. It'll happen. We hear you. And it's an absolute valid request. So it'll be there. All right. I'm going to do a quick dig through. If there's a really important questions not related to like troubleshooting, related to calendar availability, and we missed it, go ahead, send it back in the chat. If we can't get to it, it's not because we ignored you. I'm just not a very good like speed reader. So yeah, shoot it back in the chat. I'll do my best to scroll up and see if there's anything else that I can quickly address. Otherwise, check out the replay tomorrow, and also use CS. They are a fantastic resource. I can't say that enough. I see someone saying CS team is also awesome. Yes, I agree. All right. All right, you guys are amazing. Britt, is there anything you're seeing? How to start a week on Monday? We've got that one.
I think we're winding down with the questions. I think we've gotten to quite a few. And again, like Nathalie mentioned, you've got that feedback right within the platform here, or you can choose to report an issue. So if we're really not seeing it here.
Yeah, so there's one question about tasks reminders. Does that affect your availability? No, it does not, although it can show up in your calendar. As Brittany showed, like you can toggle on or off what you want to display on your calendar or not. But it will not affect your availability. So the things that will affect your availability really will be things like events in your external calendar, personal events in your Practice Better calendar, your out of office buffer times, but just kind of tasks, admin stuff, those things won't affect your calendar or your availability, pardon me.
Yeah.
All right.
Wonderful.
Hearing someone's very comfortable navigating all this. Would love an invoicing and payment deep dive. Oh, that's a great point here. Do we want you to use report? Sidetrack from the very great point, but I'm getting back to it. Do you want to use the report and issue versus feedback? They're both going to go to the same place. So you can use either one. It won't make a difference. They're both going to be equally prioritized. So yes, love all the deep dives. So we appreciate your feedback on these deep dives. We really decide what we're going to tackle based on, what you're interested in, what you need a little more support in. Also, basically, we also try to time them around new releases as much as possible. So that way we can be showing you new and exciting features and functionalities. There is a survey that's going to pop up once we stop talking, once we end the webinar. Please, if you enjoyed the webinar, or even if you think we could do something better, let us know in that survey. We read every single one of them. They really, like I said, really help us shape the format of these and what else you want to learn about.
Yeah, definitely. I think this topic actually came from someone's suggestion in our Inner Circle community Facebook group, which is a place where our community can go to connect with one another, share ideas, and just kind of get to know each other. So if you're not a part of that, you can just search Practice Better Inner Circle group on Facebook. And yeah, it's for our paid users, but you can join us over there too.
Yes. Awesome. All right, everyone. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really great. You guys were awesome. I haven't been here on a deep dive in a little while, and you guys were awesome and so nice as always. Looking forward to seeing you guys very soon. Give us some feedback and let us know. Let us send our CS team a little note and let us know if you have any troubles or if there's anything that you're just even loving.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.